Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived First Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by viewers like you. Fun relies on the generous support of our fans in order to continue to keep creating content. Please consider donating, giving bits, or subscribing. Subscribe for a few bucks a month or for free through Twitch Prime. And don't forget that our subscribers get 5x chance to win on all giveaways.
Shut up and sit down.
Hey everyone, tonight on Candidly Speaking, expect strong opinions on championship division balancing systems, possible off-season rule changes coming, ones we would like to see, and what would you, the audience, change if you were put in charge of FRC? I know what I would do, so we're going to be Candidly Speaking for First Updates Now. I'm Libby Kamen-Drost.
And I don't know what I would do, but I'm Karthik Kanagas of Apathy, and our producer for tonight is Tyler Olds. Tonight's going to be a big audience input show. During the season we had such tight timelines, but tonight we're going to take lots of questions from the chat. So tag us with first date updates now, and we'll try and get to every one of your suggestions and critique them, and just kind of think what's going on. This is going to be a quick show, so if we don't have any questions, we don't have a lot of pre-planned content, so we're really relying on you guys to kind of, give us some stuff to talk about. We also want to give a big shout out to Alan Gregory from Team 3847 Spectrum for being an inspiration for tonight's show topics. Also, we do have a giveaway tonight, and it's a very cool one brought to you from our Hall of Fame team from Down Under, Team 3132, Thunder Down Under. And they are launching the Koala Foundation, and it's selling space-themed koala apparel. I'm not sure what space-themed koala apparel is, but it sounds pretty all right. Koalas are cool. And it's actually for a great cause. It's helping raise money for Team Utah's Robotics, for Team 5593 out of Tasmania. They had a massive flood recently in this.
So we're having some mic issues here, but Team 5593 out of Tasmania, they had their lab flooded, destroyed everything, robots, machines, and parts. This team already has some monumental costs to run a first team by being an international team. And Fun Nation, we hope that you will step up and support. So we're going to bring on our producer, Tyler, to provide some more details on how to win the shirt.
Thanks, Libby. Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have you guys win this shirt and, of course, support the Koala Foundation as well, too. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. We'll post the link in chat to do that. But if you're interested in winning the shirt for this evening from them, all you have to do is make sure you either follow or subscribe to the channel. That will get you an opportunity to enter. We're going to be showing a keyword later on during the show, and all you have to do is type in that keyword, make sure you follow or subscribe, and you'll get a chance to win. Our subscribers, too, get 5 times luck to win on all giveaways, because we appreciate those who have. And thank you to everybody who's already subscribed so far for this show.
Absolutely. So if you want to use the keyword, that'll be a little bit later in chat, but that is what you get to win, and that is the super cool Space Koala shirt. And again, it is benefiting that if you want to get one or you want to help out with that, it's going to benefit teams that really could use some help. Really could use some help putting everything back together. Keep looking at that sweet space-themed koala shirt while we sort some tech issues out. But the first topic is that we're going to talk about championship division assignments and pit assignments. So what we have for the topic here is we're going to start out with talking about how divisions are assigned. So according to a blog in 2014, the way that divisions were assigned is that both rookies and veteran teams are assigned to divisions in the order that they signed up for championship. Again, this is from a blog post in 2014, so this may not be correct anymore, but that's the last information that we have. Basically, the first team that signs up for championship, and then every subsequent 6th team who signed up for the championship should theoretically be in the same division. This is a pretty random way of assigning teams, but it doesn't necessarily mean that divisions are balanced. An alternative solution that we have seen was posted by Jim Zondag last year. It's how the Michigan State Championship uses state ranking points to divide teams into quartiles. Then it assigned the divisions, leading to what they call guaranteed strength balancing. So essentially what we're going to talk about is should the first championship look into alternative methods for division assignments, and what are kind of our thoughts on how randomization could work. So we're going to take, obviously, again, like we said, we want chat participation here. So Tyler, I know we're still having some tech issues. Do you want to chime in on this, my friend?
You're right. We are having some tech issues trying to get Karthik back online, but so division assignments. So this is kind of it's a very interesting topic because it is random essentially the way that it's done right now, right? But as you mentioned, it doesn't mean it's necessarily balanced. I like the way that Jim's model is posted here for the Michigan State Championship, where is it perfect? Absolutely not. But at least it's making an attempt to try to balance the divisions. Now, I will say one thing. I think this year, divisions were actually pretty well balanced, it seemed. But it doesn't mean that's how it is every year. And I think a lot of that is attributed to how the game was this year, more than anything else on it. So I like this model that they have. I personally would love to see some sort of, as us on the FRC Top 25, we'd love to see some way to really implement an objective rankings or objective scoring that is used universally throughout first, and to take something like this, and I think it could be very well used for the championships or actually other things as well too in first. So I think there's a lot of great opportunities for it. So. Yeah, the thing about seeing somebody post in chat, the best division is how it's not balanced, and you'll see a powerhouse every 5 teams. There's something like that where that's a little bit of an issue or problem, right? It's got to be a little bit more balanced than that, and sometimes it works out really well and sometimes it doesn't. But the way that I see it right now is winning championships, unfortunately, does rely on a little bit of luck for things. So if we take 254's division with 148, now 148 is a fantastic team by all means, but if 148 was in another division with another team, would they be able to beat 254? Maybe not, and a lot of that is luck based on where you end up for it. So it would still be luck if you did the balancing that way too, but I think it would be a little more on that balance side. So Libby, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I have kind of thoughts on a tangential topic. I have opinions on how which teams getting invited to championship kind of thing. So I think what would really be helpful in the first place is I think what's kind of important as well is making sure that teams that are performing are at championship. And again, we've gone down this rabbit hole a million times, but I don't know that I'm that I love the totally random, because again, as soon as something is published, we're going to do it this way, and that registration one, as if you were really dedicated, you could totally cheese it. If you were really dedicated to sitting in front of Tim's, I think.
So random... did 148 purposely join
no.
254s? Okay.
So, I don't know that. I'm not on those teams.
That's true.
But that's such a level of effort that I can't imagine intentionally taking that amount of effort. But so I think random is hard because random doesn't, like some people have said in the chat, it doesn't always make sense. And you get divisions that have a powerhouse every 5 teams, and you have divisions that are, all sorts of things. But I also think that as soon as you do what looks like strength balancing on something like that, it's gonna make team someone's gonna have an issue with it. And again, it's first community, so people are gonna have all sorts of issues with everything. But I'm not sure. I think that first, so to touch on the questions that we had here in our kind of list of things to talk about, was the questions were, should the first championship look into alternative methods for division assignments? Yes. But then I think what PJ in the chat called Jim Zondag Crazy Math Time looks super, super cool. And it's worth looking into. But I think it would be a fundamental change in the community if we were to start balancing the divisions by strength. It would I'm trying to imagine the amount of salt spread across Chief Delphi for we didn't get into that division. Well, they first thinks I'm not strong at this, right? I think it ties into if points become universal, if the district point ranking system becomes universal, that could be kind of cool. So Karthik, we'll let you answer. So we've talked about the randomized championship assignments, or we talked about the Michigan State Championship using state ranking points to divide teams into quartiles. So we want to get your thoughts. Should the first championship look into alternative methods for division assignments? And what are your thoughts on how MSC uses their randomization? What does Ontario use for their divisions? Go for it.
Ontario actually uses the exact same system as Michigan. So we're using the Zondag formula, and it worked out really well. When the divisions came out for Ontario Provincial Championship, they were super balanced, more balanced than anyone could have really expected. And it surprised a lot of people because a lot of people didn't know that we were using the Michigan system. They just assumed that it was pure random. And so that worked out really well. So now that they're using a system like this in Michigan, I wish they would do something like this for the two champs. I think how I would do it is I would use a universal point system for all regions, and so just treat regionals like they were a district event, assign points as they were played for that. Maybe do some sort of multiplier factor for teams who only compete at one event, because we don't want to get things too biased in there. But you can come up with a multiplier. It doesn't need to be a factor of 2. You do like a 1.75 or something, and I think you're going to end up in a good spot. And we would probably have some more balanced divisions. Now that we have 12 divisions at championship, it is important to try and get some balance with them. Otherwise, you can have some weird things happening. If you think back to last year's game, where there were certain divisions of championship where no one could consistently get 40 kPa on their own. As such, it really affected the strength of certain alliances on Einstein. So I think trying to balance these divisions makes a lot of sense, and it's very little effort to do it. So it seems like high reward, low effort. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I think as you kind of dive into it, I think I'd rather play on a division where there's a huge balance than just sort of like pick a team, any team. That's your partner. So we've talked through division assignments, and you guys were awesome in dealing with a little bit of an issue there. So what we're going to talk about next
and by issue, Libby, just means that I can't use technology.
That's okay. We forgive you. Welcome back to Candidly Speaking with Libby and Karthik. So speaking of randomization, we're going to talk about the pit assignments from the championship. So earlier this year, Frank announced on the blog that pits were going to be randomly assigned to give a greater number of teams easier access to our more experienced hands in the pits. So I was at both championships for different reasons. And here are my reflections compartmentalized by championship. So in Houston, I was helping out with the live interviews on the First Inspires channel through Friday. So on Friday, it was like walk around in the pits, talk to teams, go all over the place. So the fact that I was supposed to, throughout the day, find myself at different locations throughout the championship and find someone to talk to was incredibly difficult to be able to find a team that I knew or could figure out who was in the aisle even. So the live stream was pretty fast paced. It was, a 5-minute interview here, kick to the other streamer, 5-minute interview there, kick back to the other camera. It was the two people that were on for the shift would bounce back and forth every 5 to 10 minutes. And it was like a total disaster to do the FRC pits, because I would go down the walkway and I'd be like, okay, so we've got team, oh my God, I literally have no idea what team this is. And I'm like trying to find their sign. It was totally ridiculous. If the pit were in numerical order, as it has been by division, or just people are talking about in chat about serpentine, it does, as long as there's an identifiable pattern, I think it's fine, but I like numerical order. It would have been so much easier for my situation in Houston to find teams that I can talk to and interview. And then at the other championship, I was in Detroit with my team. I will admit that I'm nursing a knee injury, so I opted out of walking in between pits. Despite being drive coach, I would have the rest of my strat team go for me. And it was the same kind of thing. They hated it. It was, oh, I don't know where this team is. Oh, find the app. Oh, it's easier to just walk up and down the aisles. I liked, and they've had this before. They where there's an A row, a B row, a C row, and then there's numbered locations. And having that as a reference point isn't a bad thing, but it was pretty awful to just say oh, where's your pit? F27, right? I would much rather have seen the divisions in numerical order. And I wish that I could say I remember who I talked to, but it was first stepper I ran into that weekend that was like, yeah, this is a thing, isn't it? Right? It was not well received, I think, all around. And I'm hoping that they go back to numerical order of the championship. I think there's the point of saying that randomizing the pit location is going to make it easier for you to find experienced teams. Like experienced teams that are willing to offer help to other teams don't really go by where they are in the pit. They go and they find other teams around them, or they go find teams in their match schedule. So I don't get the reasoning for random. The reasoning doesn't seem very in line with the community. But Karthik, let's get your thoughts on it.
I mean, like, I think you kind of said everything there. I was not at either championship, so I can't really talk too much to it. But like, I think, like when we build robots, like you want to have a strategic design, you want to have a plan, you want to know what problem, but like you have to analyze the game first. You want to know what problem you're trying to solve before you solve the problem. I would love to know what problem they were trying to solve with this new arrangement, because like, did we feel like that like younger teams were somehow isolated in the pit when it was numerically done? Because I don't really feel that way. I remember when 11-14 was considered a high number team, and we didn't feel isolated in the pits at that point. And I don't like. I don't understand. And I mean, wayfinding at events like this, like conventions, is difficult. So when you go to like a normal convention, or trade show would be like the best example that I've been to a lot. It's such a hassle to try and find anyone's booth because you need to know their booth ID, and you got to figure that out, and you got to look on a map or whatever, and that's hard enough. The first robotics competition walks into an instant solution, which is the fact that every one of their teams has a unique identifier that is a number, so it can be done very simply. And it was easy to find stuff for the longest time. And then they made this change, and I just don't understand what problem they were trying to solve. But like when we have to rely on user-generated maps to do this stuff, it's ridiculous. And like the fact that the map was only like the only supplied map by First was embedded in an app that you had to have. It was like you're just making things more difficult on your customers, and I don't understand why. But I would love to hear from a team. Like someone clearly requested this or wanted it at some point. So who was that? And I would love to know what their line of thinking was, and just kind of, because maybe there's something I'm missing here too. Because like I think it's very easy for us to get into a bubble. And so everyone I've spoken to thought this was stupid, and they used that stupid was a kind term that I just used there compared to what I've heard. So maybe I'm just in a bubble where people, all are like rallying against this, but I'd love to know what others thought about why this might have been a good idea. But like, if this is the future, then I think it's important to do some of these intelligent wayfinding with signposts at the end of each aisle, basically, that says, hey, these pits are in here. Because there's nothing worse than walking down an aisle and then realizing, oh shit, I walked in the wrong aisle. And then it's like, I got to go all the way around or whatever. So at least having those signposts there might help.
Yeah, and I think what they have, for clarification, they did have signposts, but it was down the road, like the hallways in between was there was a floor marker and a marker hung on the pipe and drape that was like A, B, C, D, E, and then had an arrow of like 1 through 20 this way, 21 through that way. It wasn't actually helpful because, again, if I didn't pull up the app or pull up a user-generated map, a map made that someone else made for me, why do I have to do the effort so that First can do something they think is fun, right? It's like I don't like it. The number and letter organization of the pits is very much. Like it's like a trade show, it's like a con, but that's because, like you said, the companies don't have an ID. We have a division that they can be in, so an area of the pit, like the pit, like building, and then they have a number, so we could just put them in that order.
We're just repeating ourselves here.
We are. I think there's one point in the chat I want to grab onto though is in FTC, at least, I can't read that. That's just straight gibberish as a username. In FTC, at least, we always have our pit next to the same teams, and it might have been nice to have pits next to other teams. And I think that may answer the problem they're trying to solve. But I think there are other ways to do that, and there have been a couple of good suggestions in the chat that are not completely random.
But like, I just, and FTC is different because they have fewer divisions. But when you have a championship with 6 different divisions, like, and the teams that I'm used to seeing are teams that I just see in Ontario. So when I get to the championship, you're seeing a different set of teams anyways, and it's not, and since there's like 6 different divisions, like I'm not going to be next to, sure. I don't understand, but like I feel dumber that I've wasted like 8 minutes talking about this. Oh yeah, that's right. I can go back to the show doc.
Yeah, we can use our chat to help create more conversation.
Catching up on technology. So some people are saying that they like numerical assignment or the serpentine assignment. With serpentine assignment, they basically mean is you start with the lowest team number, and then beside them you put the highest team number. And so, like Libby said, it would just be going through a pattern, which is better, but I still prefer numerical. Electronica number 1 _ says I would organize the pits by the second or whatever digit of team numbers and mixes it up a little bit. We could do that. I just don't know why we're trying to mix things up. Like, I just feel like we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And, someone else, Naster Field 2019, I would say numerically per division. That's what FTC does. Then there's someone who says maybe pit location should be first come, first serve. That just seems like,
Would I'm trying to imagine there's so many things in FRC that are first come, first serve that turn into a huge disaster, and I'm trying to imagine pit moving not ending in like physical fights.
We've got a better one here. Double decker pits. Boom. Problem solved. Well, I'm calling the top bunk. F that. I don't want to be below one of these teams that's going to fall on me. Screw that.
Oh my goodness. There's another in the theme of sassy comments on this topic. I wish our team got to Worlds enough that we got bored of having the same teams next to us in the pit. Fair point. But I think what's really interesting, actually, it kind of opens a door for me thought-wise, is that they're trying to do this thing where everyone goes to championship once in every 4 years. So are we going to see everybody next to the same teams over and over again? In the fact that we're trying to invite other teams to championship and that there's so many divisions, I don't think it's going to be as big of a problem. And
So now, if the root cause of this was that they felt that the younger teams weren't being able to interact with the veteran teams as much as they could be, if that's actually been a problem and younger teams at championship have felt isolated, I would love to know that, because then I think maybe we as a community could brainstorm on, hey, what can we as veteran teams do to better involve the younger teams at championship? Because, I'm just trying to think about what problem they could be trying to solve. If there's younger teams who have to go to championship and say, championship was kind of awkward. We didn't get to really talk to any of those veteran teams. We were just stuck in a row with a bunch of rookies. Then it's like, okay, then we need to be doing something else different, So I don't know, I'm trying to figure out the root cause here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's go into something a little bit different, instead of, reliving the championship and that sort of stuff. Let's talk, it's the off season right now. So let's kind of talk about what rule changes could be in store at some of these events and what you would like to see for some events. Some events have already implemented changes for their off season, while others like IRI, which kind of sets the tone for the off season events, haven't announced what they're going to do yet. Libby, each year you at 1923 run one of the most successful off season events out there, Midnight Mayhem. And you've done some pretty cool changes in the past, some that have been really weird as well. So what cool and weird things are you going to do this year?
I really appreciate the most successful off season. By the way,
one of the most.
One of the most. Okay. Selective hearing. I apologize.
I could have said your off season event really sucks. No one wants to go to it, but
we have a wait list, so does it really suck that bad? Midnight Mayhem, June 23rd.
Championship has a wait list too.
Oh, that's ouch. Oh my God. I have never felt more betrayed by my friend.
I've betrayed you so much worse than that before.
We are going a little bit off the rails. So Midnight Mayhem this year. So what we do at Midnight Mayhem, if you don't know what we do, is we institute what we call the Mayhem Rule. And it's usually something that we just kind of talk to our students about, and we go, what would be fun? And it's worked to varying degrees of like success. So in 2014, for example, we did what was called the Mayhem Ball, and we had an extra ball, which we actually bought as a team by accident from, what was the company that made the 2014 ball? Anyway, we bought the wrong thing, but we bought what we thought was the same ball size cover, and it was a smiley face. And we had never unpacked it, but we bought it, and we thought, oh, that'll sit on the center of the truss, and if you can knock it down, it's an extra ball for it to be in play. Except it was the wrong size, and that sucked. Like, the concept was awesome, but the execution was garbage. This year, the idea that is floating around with my students that I am prefacing, if you're a MAR team or a team coming to Midnight Mayhem, with this is likely not going to happen because it's a little bit insane. But the concept that my students have, they're nicknaming Project Golden Snitch, which is our team has a cube that we bought from RoboPromo with its cube cover, not a cube, but it's like a red one with 1923 iron-ons on it, and it's whatever. It's nice to practice with when we bring it to events. But what they want to do is they want to cut out the bottom of the cover and cut out the bottom of the power cube, and they want to put an RC car in it, which naturally would make that cube heavier. So I think you're starting to get the idea. So the Snitch bot would be driven by a student at the scorer's table in this little RC car. And because it would be heavier, if you can catch it and you can score it, you're receiving an advantage. Now, the reason that we're not likely to do that is because like teams design a lift for a game object that weighs a certain amount, and it would be really, really unfair if we're like, oh yeah, the cube's 12 pounds. Like, if we're going to do it, we would do something where, and I think we're approaching a drop dead point where we can't do this because we wouldn't be able to get we don't have it built, so we wouldn't be able to get the weight amount to the teams ahead of time if they wanted to do stuff. But what we do is, like you said, IRI pretty much sets the tone for off-season changes. We try to look, if it's out before Midnight Mayhem, at what IRI changes, or we just kind of discuss it as a team, what rule changes we would make as far as the common sense rules, right? So we do things like, there's no inspection at Midnight Mayhem, it's an off season, but like we write the thing about adding some weight to the weight limit, because if a team wants to experiment with something, but it would make them 122 pounds, that's a really stupid like reason to limit them at an event that's for fun. We don't, we don't take ourselves too seriously at Midnight Mayhem, but just kind of the stuff that when you look at the game, you're like, this really isn't necessary. So some of the stuff actually that I think we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show, but little rules that would make a difference in just the quality of life for teams, we do try to implement into Midnight Mayhem.
Yeah, I think that kind of makes sense. My philosophy on this sort of thing has always been like, I don't like rules changes that affect robot design, because like that stuff's locked in, and I think a lot of teams just don't want to work in the off season. They just want, they want to go to the event and
exactly.
play with the robot they have. They don't want to have to redesign. They don't want to be a real challenge. So I like things that might introduce a different level of strategy, but not a different level of design. And I obviously like, in certain games when things are very broken, just fixing them. But I also think it's important, like, I don't know, like we have a game, and whether you like it or not, you have to realize that's the game that teams are playing. And I think that teams, for the most part, want to play the same game. But less about that, and let's just talk about some actual proposed changes out there and kind of see what you and I think about this. We dug some up from what was posted on Chief Delphi. I know people are posting in the chat, tag first updates now with potential changes, and let's just kind of go through them one by one. And let's try and be kind of quick on them, Libby. So the first one, launching when transitively in contact with the switch is not a foul.
I think that'd be, I think launching stuff can chill out a little bit, right? I think some of these are going to need detail, but overall conceptually, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay if it's transitively while contacting a cube, because I thought it was really annoying. You're holding a cube, you're going to the switch, and there's a cube right in front of you, and then you got to move that now, and you've got to deal with that, and then a ref might call you for possession for moving that cube while you have it. Which
may or may not. You never know.
Exactly, which is going to tie into some of ours. But launching transitively through a robot, it might be a little bit excessive. But yeah, I think basically like loosening up the launching rules for the Switch makes a lot of sense to me, and for the scale as well. Like just loosening up those launching rules a bit, so teams who are, their intent is clearly just to reverse their rollers aren't getting punished.
Yeah. So the next one is owning the opponent's switch generates points. So rather than just neutralizing it, that it would actually up your score. Thoughts?
I think that's kind of like a cool, different game dynamic, but that's a major change to the game, and that's too major for my liking for an off-season event.
Yeah, it's kind of to your point of most people want to go to an off-season and play the same overall game. I don't think it would make the blowout matches worse, right? I think it's a huge change to the dynamic, so maybe not.
What about removing the requirement that robots must cross the auto line to complete the auto quest, or just getting rid of the auto quest in general?
If you're removing that they have to cross the line, I'm assuming that it would be that they have to move to say like, oh, everyone did Auton, or if we're just making it that someone has to score on the Switch to get AutoQuest. I feel like that makes AutoQuest too easy. But I mean, like I'm like a maybe on this because I don't fully understand what it means.
Well,
but
I think we have to remember a lot of the suggestions that we pulled from Chief Delphi are from the IRI rules thread.
Right. Yeah.
And so for IRI, you have a different set of constraints because you have a very high-end event with teams where getting rid of the auto quest might make sense because it's so trivial, for crossing the line, scoring the Switch, and whatever, and that might encourage more teams to do like double scale autos and stuff like that. But I mean, you got to remember there's some off-season events where the quality is worse than the worst district events, and so it's like, yeah, like I could see that working at a high-end event. I definitely wouldn't see that working at a normal event, though.
Yeah. So the next one is more tolerance on G05, which deals with extending outside of the 16-inch perimeter. So this one's probably behind the idea that so many teams were getting red carded for trying to hang, backing up too far, and extending too far. Your thoughts?
So I don't like needless red cards, and I just kind of wish that there was a little bit more leniency with that rule as well, where the refs could have issued a yellow to warning teams. It's like, hey, like, yeah, you got an extra hang out of that, maybe, or your hang became easier because you expanded your 60. You were too big while you were slightly outside the zone, especially for the teams who were doing the hook on hangs. And it's like some leniency there would be good. So yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with that, depending on how it's written. Like again, these are like very vague statements. You'd have to be careful on how you wrote that one, but some leniency there would be good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect example of the quality of life, common sense changes. Fewer red cards at an event that's supposed to be for fun. Wow, big surprise.
Also, remember, these off-season events may have fewer refs than a regular season event, so it makes lives easier for the refs. They're not having to watch, for teams crossing the line in the hanging period. Like, that's big, too. Here's one that, oh my God, why wasn't this done right away? Oh, I know why. Themes. Replacing the opaque graphics on the scale with clear polycarb.
But retro gaming, there's no reason for stuff to, like, add an extra visibility problem. If those were clear, there would still be like the weird kind of warping of seeing your robot through all of the clear polycarb. But we don't. Adding the graphics just for the sake of the theme is really frustrating. This is actually something that we did get I'm sure because it was the IRI thread, but a couple of the Mayhem teams have asked us about it. We can't do it at Mayhem because Mar needs the field back. And I don't want to make all of the other off seasons in Mar do the rules that we pick. But yeah, I mean.
Well, I guess you could do your own lap Sam, Libby.
We priced it out. It's a little expensive for
Gotcha.
A one-time thing. If there's any other Mar teams listening and you're running an off season, you want to do clear polycarb, let's talk about it. The next one that comes down is more tolerance on contact with the scale if it doesn't impact gameplay.
Yes. Teams who just accidentally bump into the scale or like they're driving to the scale. So you wouldn't even call it accident. They're driving to the scale and they just tap it or whatever. I think that rule probably could have been more relaxed. And it brings up a point, and we could do a whole episode on this. I know we got PJ in chat, who's a very experienced ref. I'm sure he could talk about it. But like, man, this year was rough on consistency for reffing. And the two ones that really came up in my mind was this one, contacting, and then possession of multiple cubes. Like it was called so differently at different events, or even worse, on different sides of the field. So some more leniency.
Can confirm.
would be good because like when I first saw this one before the show, I was like, oh, like the refs that I had for the most part didn't call this like crazy, and then I was like, nope, I remember other events where this was like terrible. So The next one that we have, or Libby, if you want to continue with it.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I just goofed it up, but I think it's kind of similar in theme though. More tolerance on cube hurting if unintentional. The unintentional word trips me up because how do you say what the intent was? But like the example that I think you provided of when we're talking about launching, where if you just happen to be contacting and maybe you like wiggle your bumpers a little bit, that like don't call a team for that. I'm down for this one if we define what that means.
Yeah, this was the one where I was most frustrated with this season because there were some refs who like you could push the 6 cubes all at once and they just weren't calling it. And like that's such a huge advantage in this game, and people might not have realized it until championship, the way certain alliances were deploying defenders to protect those 6 cubes from your opponents. But like if you get them all in one spot, it was this equivalent of like having a ramp in 2015 that you could slide totes down, and like they were just loaded up for you there. So I'm not sure how I feel about more tolerance on cube hurting there, because I think, you know, it's easy to say if it's unintentional, but then people will unintentionally push.
Yeah. Oh, I accidentally did that. You can't prove I did it on purpose. Like it's a weird unintentional is hard to prove or explain.
So this one's interesting. I don't like it, but it's interesting. It made me think. Levitate only provides a 30-point bonus and does not count as a free hang. Climb.
Okay. Yeah, this is interesting, but I'm not a fan.
It makes the RP very, very difficult, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But so right now there's a lot of teams who can get the RP because they have what I call skinny hang, or 2 teams with the hook and drive away, you know, where you hook on,
yeah,
you reach up. It's very doable. It's been proven to get 2 of those robots up, but like to get 3 up all of a sudden. So like it really gives an advantage to the teams who have lifts already. But I think the reason that a lot of teams don't have those lifts is because they did the calculus before the season and they're like, yeah, like it doesn't make sense for us to do it because we can do this sort of skinny hang. So I think this falls into the category of affecting robot design.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it would be cool if that had been from the beginning, but I think switching it at the off-season point is going to make teams kind of sad because maybe they didn't make a ramp bot.
Absolutely. I would have loved it if this was the rule at the very beginning, because it really would have incentivized lifts and we might have seen more teams try them, which might have been bad at the same time. This game was challenging enough. I don't know, but food for thought.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one. And I like the ones that make you think. So this one's kind of cool too. Owning the opposing alliance's switch for over half the match, or, well, I don't know about or at the end of the match, but for over half the match or at the end of the match provides you a ranking point. There's something in the idea that you would be calculating how long it was owned, and if it was more than they had it. There's something really like cool about that concept. I don't know if that's the exact execution, but I like this overall idea. Again, like from the beginning, not something that would change now.
Yeah, that's not something I'd want as a mid-season change, but man, would that be nice for a Switch bot? You know, makes them more useful. So yeah,
absolutely.
That's just kind of cool in general, and also it changes the dynamic a little bit from the point by the second sort of thing, which this game could have used. 30 points or a bonus or some sort for whoever controls the scale at the end of the match. I mean, again, it's a big change to the game, but I kind of wish that was the game in general.
Yeah, and it was who controlled it at the end. That would be really, really fun. Like, I would want to play that game, but I don't know if that's a power-up change.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. This one's kind of easy. Additional cubes located next to the portals. Like, take it or leave it. More cubes in the game, I don't think would be as, like, earth-shattering as some of the other changes that have been brought up already. But, I mean, how many situations were there where everything was gone, right?
Yeah. This might be a good one that's good for IRI, but or maybe even just the playoffs at IRI. But like, you go to an average off-season event. Remember, at off-season events, like, let's be real, most teams aren't taking them seriously. Lots of teams don't have their normal drive teams, so exhausting the field is just not going to be a thing at most events. It might not even be a thing at IRI. So like, I don't think this one's super necessary. But like, again, if your event has the cubes, it doesn't hurt to put them there and just say, yeah, just in case the field gets maxed out, we have some extra cubes. So
Yeah, exactly.
one thing that I kind of like about it is because you may not be maxing out the field, but teams definitely maxed out portals because and they max out the portal on the close side to where their switch was, so or their scale was. So instead of being locked in at 7 there, having 10 there might make it might open the game up a little bit. So I think that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
If a robot makes contact with another robot in their platform zone during the end game, the entire alliance is awarded a climb, as opposed to right now where it's the specific robot who is contacted, and then if they end up hanging themselves, the alliance doesn't get any bonus even though they were interfered with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when you explain the rule that way, it's really hard not to agree to a change to it. What's interesting is I found that that I didn't, at least for this, with our team, as is an Ice 23 experience, is that we would be interfered with on our way to something in that zone, like clear contact, trying to get on a ramp or something. And what we got was, the response was, well, we couldn't tell if them hitting you made it so you couldn't get up. So they didn't interfere with you. So I'm down for destroying this rule entirely because it didn't even get called sometimes. But I don't know, maybe it's that it's counted as an extra, as a climb, much like levitate is applied to robots. Maybe not the entire alliance, because if the entire alliance, then you're automatically doing the ranking point. But
and I don't want to assume, but I don't think they meant that each robot was getting a climb. It's just an alliance climb.
It's the way that levitate's applied.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this. I like this. That's fine.
Although, it does increase the incentive of trapping an opponent in your own zone to force the penalty to get and take the intentional yellow card, which we saw teams doing throughout the year. And I don't like anything that further incentivizes teams to take yellow cards. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So the next one was make the switch worth 2 points per second instead of 1.
Totally different game.
Yeah, totally. I feel like we have a couple of containers to put these suggestions in, and this is the totally different game container. Is that would be a huge change. I think teams would have made different decisions.
You might have to help me with this next one, Libby. Provide a buff on the force power up to control both switches.
So you see, in gaming, a buff is when they increase the power of an ability or a spell. So adjust the force power up to control both switches.
Gotcha. That's kind of a big change, but not a super one, because remember, the power-ups only last for 10 seconds. So it's basically increasing the power-up. I could do or not do with that one.
Yeah, no, yeah, kind of the same thing. I'm not against that one, but I'm not that would make a huge difference, in a positive way. I will always be here to teach you about the internet. No worries, friend. Have some sort of money cube or something that is worth more if it's on your side. So some sort of special cube. Again, I think this is one of those ones that comes down to implementation, is how does that become entered? And one of the other suggestions that I think we're going to kind of scoop up that we have considered later on is that that something similar to, and I'm sorry, chat, I'm going to say it, lunacy, where you would have some sort of super cube exchange, or if you did something in the game, you received this super cube, this money cube, this additional cube. So in Karthik, I'll let you explain lunacy, because we love talking about lunacy all the time.
We'll get. I'm just on the money cube idea. So I'm down with the money cube if, as soon as you play the money cube, they play Lil Wayne go, I make it rain, or Shane Max music, show me the there's so
you gotta have money themed field sounds that are involved with this.
There's 800 different songs you could use. It could be a different one each time. I could be the money DJ and just drop a money. Okay.
That's your you just sit there and you have a button box that's just so, the way that you would exchange. Oh my god, I can't handle this. Okay. So I know Tyler linked lunacy, but essentially, based on, you would have to return a game piece to the human player. You could exchange it for a different game piece in the end game that was worth more points. So that's the idea, is that you would have to do something in the game And then by doing that, you would receive this bonus cube, this power up, if you will, and that would impact it. I think again, it's that would change the game. I don't know if it would change robot design because you'd still be picking up cubes.
So if you think about this, so like the supercell kind of idea of lunacy. There's a local off-season event up here, the Stanley Cup, run by 4039 and 5406, makeshift in South Tex, and they always do rules changes, and they always add something in the last 30 seconds of the match, where like you have like some sort of like a tote that made your stack worth double in 2015, or a gear that was worth double, or something like that. So I think you could use this concept where, yeah, if you exchange a cube early on, you get the money cube. And then the money cube can only be played, let's say, via the portal in the last 30 seconds. But if you score it on the scale or on the switch, and then it's just say like a pure point bonus, like you get 30 points if you score it. You know, like it has the weight at the mass, obviously, of a cube. But if that last second rush of someone trying to score the money cube would be exciting. And I don't think it affects robot design. And like this is something I could get behind as like as a change that affects strategy, definitely, but doesn't affect robot design. And I think that's...
Yeah. So one of the ones that I think was really interesting not to have this year, but award ranking point bonus points in playoffs. So much like previous games where, it's worth a ranking point in quals, but in playoffs, it's worth a certain amount of points to change that up for power up and to add that back in.
I don't know, because like it would depend. You know, my feelings on this would depend on what those bonus points were worth. But like I mean, it's already punitive enough in quals when like your partner doesn't move and misses the line in auto, or like you just missed the cube in the switch or something like that. I'd hate to see, like, you could already lose this game in auto as is, and missing the bonus, like if you lose 50 bonus points or even 30 bonus points in auto, like an additional, like that's, I don't like, maybe for the end game, but not for auto.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair enough.
Another one we have, the Auto Quest RP, which we talked about earlier, would require you to score a cube in both the switch and the scale. I think this one goes back to, yeah, it's good for IRI and like a high-end off-season event, but like other events, like no way.
Yeah, like you were just saying how you can lose a match in auto because your partner doesn't move, and it's like, I think that's by far the more common experience than, like, we don't have anything to do in Auton because everyone's too good, right? I think that it would be another way that you could lose Auton with a partner kind of failing. So we have a couple of suggestions from chat that we can discuss. So now these we obviously have not read until I've gotten here. So from our resident ref, PJ, so 1, remove hurting as a foul, get rid of it, don't care about it.
And we talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I agree from like a ref perspective, but like, man, you know, I can plow 6 cubes right into my null zone where no one's going to be able to touch them, and I can leave them right there for, you know, whoever. And like if you have a partner like a 118 or whatever, they're just going to murder you at that point. So like that's a big change. Mm-hmm. So I don't really love that.
It is interesting to hear a ref perspective, but yeah, I think some of those.
It does solve one of the things that you and I were complaining about, the lack of consistency on that one.
Yes.
By removing the rule, like it takes all judgment from the refs out of the play. They don't have to struggle with trying to figure out if something was intentional or accidental. They don't have to try and establish consistency amongst 6 people with different viewpoints. So I get it, but
yeah. But again, I think we've kind of discussed these too as well, but it's cool to see it from a ref perspective that I guess there's an agreement. The lightening up on the contact for the scale doesn't. So the suggestion that PJ is specifically saying is that it wouldn't incur a penalty unless it benefits you. So if it was already against you and you tapped it, it wasn't a big deal, which is an interesting quality of life change. But it's, again, that puts responsibility back on the refs for being consistent about that call. So if, let's say, it was tipped and then it went down to halfway and then went back up, is that benefiting me? Did it tap for half a second?
Yeah, but I think we're in the weeds right here. I think for the most part it was pretty obvious, you know? Like there were sometimes teams were getting punished for pushing the scale upwards, which was clearly hurting them. So like they were getting doubly punished. So,
yeah. And then we kind of had this one as well, but launching allowed from about 6 inches away from the switch to cut down on the tech fouls. I think the transitive, like if you're touching one of the cubes up against the fence, would be fine. That kind of thing is, again, it's makes things easier and it doesn't penalize a team, like you said, for just reversing their rollers.
And it doesn't mean a ref has to waste their time like eyeing down the Lexan to make sure.
Yeah, like lining up against the wall to make sure, and then we don't have to do all these silly zip tie things. And yeah. Okay.
Another one we have from Bob 101 the Great. You can launch from anywhere in the field, but if you launch it outside the field, it's a tech foul. Yeah, that would change the game very much. So, as much as I would have loved this game, if you could launch cubes from anywhere,
he's chucking them all over the place.
Oh, it would have been great. Like throwing these things around is fun. I mean,
yeah.
Can you imagine full court cube launching from the portal? Oh.
That would be absolutely wild.
and poor MC standing by the field would get hit in the head, and then we'd have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or your uncle might take a cube to the head, Libby. Like,
listen, the gif of the soccer ball is still one of my ways that I brighten up my day if I'm having a particularly gray day. It's hilarious to me now that we're past it. But it would be a safety issue. Like it would be a little bit of a safety issue to allow for like much larger. I mean, think about 2013 when they put the nets up, right? The cube isn't going to get stopped by a net. What GIF? The GIF that you're currently, it's the GIF of the video you're currently watching on stream. Watch Dean. Ready, set. I timed it wrong, but it's great. He leans in. There we go. Soccer ball to the face. Oh goodness. On to our next suggestion, because I think that would be less funny with a cube object, because like the point could get in your, anyway. Let teams pick up 2 cubes at once is our next suggestion. That's from N. Satterfield.
That's a totally different game and a design challenge. Like, yes, that would be a cool game, probably.
Yeah.
Fix the scale lights to be on the plates instead of the lame fix to the triangles at the bottom. Yes, sure. If that was possible, I'm sure First would have done it already.
Yeah.
They didn't make that change because they wanted to. They made that change because it just wasn't working and the lights were getting zapped or something or whatever. So yeah, I like the field a lot better when the lights were up high too.
Yeah, it's a cooler visual. So that's actually all the chat ones that have been collected for us. So we're gonna kind of shift gears a little bit. So audience, we are relying on you here. We want to know what you would change about FRC if you were put in charge of it. We're talking big picture. We're not talking 2018 Power Up. I mean, we've kind of talked about that already, but we are going for like the larger scale picture of FRC. So Karthik, while we're waiting for people to type their responses in the chat, and what was the kind of collect what we have from our social media channels, what's one thing that you would like to see changed?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I mean, like overall, like I obviously like the first robotics competition. That's why I'm a participant. And I think, Libby, I know you and I share the same opinion on this. Over the past 6 years under Frank's leadership, I think they've started to get a lot more things right. And like I have fewer major complaints, like I have minor things like, and I mean, when I say I have minor things, like minor things about like, hey, the pit assignments at championship, or whatever, but like whole programmatic changes. One thing that they've gotten better at, but I'd love to see it pushed out worldwide, hardcore, and made a point of emphasis for the 2019 season, is reminding everyone at events, when you're talking about the volunteers and the staff who are at events, that this event is about the teams and it should be team-centric. I had the great opportunity to go to the Pan Am Games in 2015, which is the second largest sporting event outside of the Olympics in terms of number of sports, number of athletes, and whatever. And the whole process for the volunteer training was like we spent a day listening to people tell us about how the teams are the VIPs and the athletes are the most important people there, and we are there to make everything about them, to make sure that their experience is great and do whatever we can for them. And they talked, and I would just love it if that was the emphasis that we were making, towards that our teams are always the priority. And I think that Frank's done a good job about it. The updated volunteer trainings the last couple of years. And so I have to give credit. I don't know who runs that department now, but I think they've done a much better job of incorporating that as well. But like just trying to keep these events team friendly. And I would love to go through a season where I don't have to hear from like 15 different people after championship about how they were yelled at championship by volunteers. So I would love to really just keep pushing that culture until we get it right, and make sure that our volunteers are team friendly and everyone's really doing this thing to just try and make this about the teams.
Absolutely. And that's always kind of my first answer, is remembering who the program is for, and what the purpose of running these events are, to inspire kids. And my thing is like making the kids at events feel like rock stars. I don't think getting screamed at by someone is making them feel like a rock star. I guess mine is, it's minor in the scope of your comparison to yours, but I would love to see more dynamic graphics and audience information on webcasts. I would love to see more to teach people from outside the tent about FIRST and what it is on webcasts. FIRST has done an awesome job with the webcast unit and kind of standardizing that and growing that program over the last couple of years, where we have this at least the same webcast for every event, or the same overall look and feel. But for example, if you're going to have somebody run the webcast unit anyway, assign them to a point where when there's the 10-minute match break and we're all doing the Macarena, instead of dance cam, run a video about what FIRST is for people who aren't watching, or simple things that can educate an audience. Because if we're going to be using this incredible partnership that FIRST has with Twitch for expanding FIRST's reach in a demographic that's, pretty similar, I think it would be really important to educate on the streams more and have a more appealing graphic. I think there's a lot of like cool stuff they could do animation wise, screen wise, that could really, really make a quality difference in the stream.
On that topic, Libby, so like I think it's worth discussing is like, I think they're at a point where they first needs to make decisions about their webcasts on who their intended audience is. Is their intended webcast audience inside the tent or outside the tent? Because I think what you show would be very different. And for example, I think the thing that gets people inside the tent most upset about webcasts is when the camera zooms in on specific robots.
Absolutely. And oh my God, I rage.
But if you're saying that we want to tailor these webcasts for people outside the tent, you need to zoom in on specific robots, because they will never know what those robots look like specifically. They won't see the magic of it. And so like that's an example of one where it's like, it's totally contrasting what you would do. So I think FIRST needs to make a decision on these. I would hope the decision that they make is these webcasts for people inside the tent, because that's me and that's who I care about.
Yeah.
But or maybe, at championship they had different streams going, and maybe you use your outside the tent stream and you market it that way instead of the outside of the tent stream being so focused on interviews or whatever. But I don't know, and like it's tough because you have two sets of audiences that need very, very different things.
So here's what's interesting, and this is like maybe a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, but again, when I was in Houston, I was helping out with the interviews on the FIRST Inspires channel. Now, most people didn't watch that until Saturday, like Houston. I was doing Houston. I can't speak for Detroit. But what they were doing on the FIRST Inspires channel was a really cool first crack at the outside the tent versus the inside the tent. So on FIRST Inspires was just constantly interviewing teams and the interest pieces and the PR videos. And then FIRST Inspires 1, I know, was the RSN coverage and match views. What I would love to see is a version of that where, like, broadcast A is the public-facing outside the tent interviews, like, I don't want to say fluff pieces, but like the videos that tell the story of FIRST and would get people interested. And not like the scholarship reel, but like this is what FIRST is. It's a team story. And then a secondary webcast that is just a static full field view of of a field for the division. Like does no camera switching, no podiums, no nonsense, just a full field. And I think that solves the issue of if you're inside the tent, to go to this other channel, or maybe we push that you're supposed to go to the other channel. And then if you are just watching from a promotional perspective, for example, the FIRST Inspires channel receiving Twitch promotion, then that is the one where you get this kind of, during the match, it's the multicam, during the, in between, there's interviews, there's videos, there's content. And I think it was a really cool first crack at the concept of that content. I think there's a lot of room to go up, but it was something that I think I would, if I were sitting up at the top, I would throw resources into that, because I think developing both of those channels are going to be really important for the community. But before we get into some audience opinions, we are actually going to start our giveaway here. Again, this giveaway is from Team 3132. That's Thunder Down Under. They're raising money to help a team in Tasmania who lost absolutely everything their team has due to a flood. So if you want to win a shirt, and you can get a shirt, but if you want to win one from us, you're going to make sure you click that follow button. It's the heart up in this corner of your Twitch chat, or Twitch window. You're going to click the follow button. If you're following the stream, you're part of entering to win. And if you want to directly help support fun in creating the content that we make, and you can get some sweet emotes, you can click subscribe, which you can also do for free with Twitch Prime. It's you can do with money or Twitch Prime. If you are a subscriber, you get 5 times a chance to win. So right now, we are going to have you type in the keyword space koala, one word, not space koala. Space koala, no space, and we will draw for a winner in a few minutes. Curtis losing. Sorry. Space koala, one word. We're going to draw for a winner in a few minutes. You only have to enter it in chat once. You don't have to spam it, so it doesn't give you more entrances the more times you write it. It's any follower or any subscriber. So type your space koala one time, and move on. So we have questions again gathered from social media as well as the comments here. So what would we change? What would we adjust? So I don't know if we want to read and react, Karthik, or do we just want to put them?
Let's react. So the first one we have is no more stop building day. Yeah, like that. I mean, we've done shows on this, and
we've done. You can watch that show on our YouTube archive.
There you go. There's lots of opinions on this. I would say that this is one where I think, the kind of community that watches first updates now may be in a little bit of a bubble on this one, because the more teams I talk to in person about this, who aren't on Chief Delphi and aren't on first updates now, they keep telling me the same thing. It's like, yeah, first can get rid of that, and then our team's dropping out. So there's a lot of opinions on this. It's a complicated topic, and I appreciate that first isn't going to rush into any decisions here.
Absolutely. So the next one comes from Jim Dietz. It's fixed championship. No more 2-hour break between the round robin to move several blocks away, and then 2+ hours to play the last 2 matches. I tend to agree. I think the current format of the way that round robin and Einstein works is a cost of the way that the championship format is right now. I don't think that's something that can really adjust. I will say that I went to both separate venue Einsteins. I went to Minute Maid Park and I went to Ford Field. And it was clear that after a certain point in the show, which again was the exact same show, everyone was kind of like, okay, do we get to play matches yet? It's for some reason it felt worse than previous versions of Einstein to me, than when everyone moves to one end of the dome. But I think we kind of, I don't know what the answer is for the separate venues.
The answer for the separate venues is to find a venue that can do everything at once, which, again, I wasn't in Detroit, but I heard that, from people who were at Ford Field, they're like, we could probably jam this all in here. I don't know.
It did seem like the entire Detroit championship could have fit in Ford Field. It would have been the Dome championships of years past. And
would there have been room for the pits there too?
That's what I'm not sure of. It depends on what kind of other space is connected. I don't know anything.
You and I have been to venues. We know they exist where you can do. So I understand they're tied into venue contracts right now, and the venue contracts are such a huge decision. There's so many factors that go in beyond this, but it would be nice to kind of keep everything at one venue. My kind of vision, is that you take a venue like Houston, where you were playing in the pits and you had from everything I heard from the pitchers, these nice row of fields, but you jazz up a couple of them for the finals, with better lighting, drapes, and all sort of stuff, and then you may, even if you have the room to add 2 standalone fields, so you play on your normal 6 divisions, but then this whole area is draped off with curtains and there's special lighting and no one can go in there. until right before finals, and then you walk in, and that's where you're going to. So you're not walking 2 hours. You don't have this large transition, and But I get it. Stuff costs money, and stuff it's complicated.
Yeah, and I think what I have to say is, from being at both, Ford Field, like the way that the Ford Field like stage area was dressed was like exactly kind of like what you're talking about, like the drapes, the lights. It was like something fancy and like fun and big and epic. And I missed that. So our next one, moving on, I wanted to say that because I thought Ford Field looked rad as hell. And one of my seniors said, "Oh, we're at championship now. I get it." Like it, because she's been a dome champs gal her whole time on the team, and so it was nice to have kind of the reaction of like, "Oh, whoa, this is a really big event. This is a big deal."
All right, let's try and go rapid fire on something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Going to be here forever. Here's one that I can go very rapid fire on. Change quarterfinals so that 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3, 5 plays 8, 6 plays 7. That is terrible, right? I mean, why are we incentivizing teams to be the number 5 alliance? We already have the Serpentine match, which encourages way too much match throwing, which was exhibited this year, especially at championships. So no, let's move on.
Yeah.
Next one. What do you think about this one, Libby? 1 championship, universal districts.
Universal points or universal districts? Because
I don't know. Ask Andrew.
Yeah, but I think it would be. I am intrigued by the idea of the point system kind of stretching across all of first. I know that there are regions that truly don't have the team density to support districts, but I like the idea of a set of kind of qualifying rankings. It's an intriguing idea to me. I don't have the answer I don't run first. I don't research the stuff. It's not my job to research the stuff. I do this for fun. But it's an interesting concept. I would love to go back to a single championship, but that's realistically not my cards.
A universal point system is not that hard. It is very doable. So, I mean, the 1 championship thing, that's another story, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to have more openness because from what I have seen, there was oftentimes, this is from Bob 101 the Great again, oftentimes when there was some speculation on an issue and first could have made a statement. For example, on Einstein, when a team was disabled for 2 matches, people were making conspiracy theories. Now, again, I think this is just a consequence of the kind of Twitch chat mentality where it's like everyone is like the armchair strategist watching Einstein. But I also, I can understand why first chooses not to comment because saying what this team was having, and I believe I heard it was an electrical issue, but I did not, that's not confirmed anyway for me, but how, is that cool to that team to have there be a statement on the issue that they had? I don't love the idea of that. I think when there are really, really big community issues, first has made, and again, this is back to your original point when we started this card thing, huge changes under Frank's leadership. FRC specifically has made huge changes in transparency with teams, and when something goes wrong, there's stuff about it. I just don't think every situation necessitates a Frank blog post, right? There's things that matter, and there's things that are okay, let's move on.
But I would agree with you. In general, I think more transparency the better. But obviously, we can't have statements over every single thing. But here's an example where I think some transparency could have been useful. And I'll try and go quickly on this one. But whatever happened at the Turkey event where the number 2 seed didn't play in the elims, and from reports, the number 2 seed was not broken. But the reports out there, and no one knows what's true because no statement was made, was that they were disqualified from the event. So I think if a team is disqualified from an event, if that something like that has happened, then maybe something should be said. And then once rumors start going through the community that a team's been disqualified from the event, I also think something should be said because that's really unfair for the team if the rumor is false, that this rumor is propagating. So, that's an example where I see it. But as for individual match failures, even on the biggest stage, yes, transparency, good.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, here's one that I have not read yet. It's long, so I'm just going to read it and learn it as it's going on. Any good competitive model can always be improved. I agree with that statement. Often, a problem seems to occur as when sustained targeted one-on-one defense borders on or may even become the prime objective. Obvious is when the main focus, one or even two alliance focus on disabling, targeting an opponent. That sentence was not a sentence.
No.
Likely efforts to deal with bullying holds high priority within the rules of healthy competition. Related issues include targeted, sustained, uninterrupted defensive disabling of opponent, often unrecognized until the competition becomes morphed into a contest. So I think there was a bit of a translation issue there, so that's why we're having a hard time processing this one. I think the gist of it is games are a little bit too defensive, and they would prefer to make things flow more offensively, which I think. Oh, the person's from Knoxville, so it's not a language issue.
I mean, it's a language issue, but it's not a translation issue. I
Yeah,
mean,
thank you, Libby.
the way that this like is written sounds like a very specific case, right? Like a very specific thing. I think that's an interesting, like, thinking about how defense plays into the game is an important part of game design. But I think that's probably a little specifically charged rather than overall. But it's an interesting perspective on taking the role of defense a little bit down outside of the game. Is an opinion that people can have.
And it's one that I firmly believe in. I really do like the use of protected zones, even though it makes life difficult for the ref. I like offensive flowing games where teams aren't incentivized to tear their opponents down. They're incentivized to build themselves and their partners up. So I do like Recycle Rush, which, had its pros and cons. I'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So from W. Doherty, I'd like to see a behind the game design thing from first about the process of making a game. I would love to see that too. That's so rad. I want that. It would be cool if they could record the process and make a little documentary and then debut it at championship, show people how they came up with the game.
I'm going to make a suggestion right now to our producer Tyler. Tyler, you've gotten Frank on the show before. Maybe just inviting Frank and a couple other game design committee members for a behind the curtains peek at the game design process. I think our viewers would love that.
I think that's a great idea, man. We should definitely follow up on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's one. Only allow student team members to be on the drive team, like the Cheesy Poofs. I have witnessed some un-GP behavior from adult coaches. That's from Kathy Seifert.
I mean, this debate gets beaten to death, so I think this is really just a larger social media audience than we're casting at. But we've discussed this on this show before. We discussed it on Chief before. We talk about this a lot, but it's there's bad behavior on adult and student sides in almost all aspects of FRC. I've had, I'm going to try not to invoke the first update's now swear jar, but I have had student coaches tell my students to F off because of a strategic decision. It's not just adult coaches, it's bad coaches. So unless you can ban bad coaches or bad, interpersonal communicators from drive teams, I don't think this is valid. And I still think this is something that is down to a team to make a decision about.
Well, coming from a person who's been an adult drive coach and also on a team that has always had adult drive coaches, I'm obviously for adult drive coaches, but I will play devil's advocate here for a minute and say that it looks really weird when you have, especially in regions where there's very few adult drive coaches, where it's you're looking at 6 drive teams out there and it's a bunch of teenagers and then there's a 50-year-old fat guy. It looks weird, and it doesn't surprise me that people get uptight about this because it's a weird sort of thing. When I was on the game design committee for the VEX Robotics competition, we had adult drive coaches for a while, and we banned them eventually because it looked weird and wasn't what we were going for with our competition. Now FRC is a different boat because it's a mentor-driven program, and I don't want to. I personally like it, but I do understand why people think it's weird because as much as they're called the drive coach and we talk about it as the coach, there's no sport where coaches are on the direct playing field right there with their athletes. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think this one comes up a bit. And I think that those of us who are supportive of adult drive coaches need to be a little bit more mindful of this when having discussions with others, because I think it's really easy to shout it down and just being no, this is what the program is. And I don't think that helps. So
yeah, I think
I see the viewpoint.
I think I see the viewpoint. I think reading the way that it's getting to read it and see kind of the quotes and emphasis in the sentence is like, sometimes that comes from the attitude of like, I had a bad experience with one person. But I actually want to bring up a mention from chat here. Necro Creature posted, from my team, for example, we don't have anyone really who would be a good drive coach. Making adults not be able to do it hurts smaller teams. So I think this is where it kind of like falls down to a team decision. And I like that it is an individual team's decision.
But I also think that if people out there witness un-GP behavior from adult drive coaches, well, I mean, if it's so un-GP that it makes you want to change the entire program, that probably means it's un-GP enough for you to go to pit admin and grab one of those non-medical incident reports. Because if you see an adult or a student or just yelling at another person in the drive box, that's probably not appropriate. And like, maybe you want to go have a conversation with them, and then maybe you don't feel comfortable having that conversation. And like, you have to understand that sometimes, yelling can be normal in heated events or whatever. But like, if you think that bullying is happening, then it's worth following up with someone at the event to make sure that that's not an issue. Because like, I think we can all agree that we don't want to see students, adults, anyone bully at an event.
Agreed. Like I think that's seeing that behavior means we need to do something about it as a community and be better. So this is I guess a similar line, but a wider net here. All mentors should sign a hands-off contract before being allowed to work with a team. Too many times I've seen only mentors with the hands in the robot while the students stand and watch. And I think we've discussed this on this show before and on other First Minute Down shows.
But we haven't discussed it this episode. And
yeah,
so
we can touch on it.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that, like, when you open up the first game manual, which I'm doing right now, like one of the first things, maybe I'm not opening it up right now, it talks about how this is a program where it's a partnership between mentors and students. So, I mean, that would be a complete change to the first program. And if this is the first robotics competition, and that's something that FRC wants to do, then that's something they want to do. But this right now, it's important to remember that mentor involvement is encouraged and is legal. And if it's not encouraged anymore by FIRST, they need to tell us, because I do know that I've heard specifically from regions, not my own, that there are regional directors out there who are telling people that no, mentors shouldn't be involved. Mentors should only be there to guide, and it should be like FLL. If there's officials telling people this, we just need to know what's expected and what's wanted in teams, and just make it clear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic.
Dark Cedar 54, do what BattleBots is doing this season. Less fluff, more robots doing things. I don't watch BattleBots, so I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so there are fewer pieces that are like the big video interest piece about, where they come from. There's a quick intro, but it's not really about the story of the team. It's more of the robot matches, which is really cool. I would say different fluff, because right now our fluff is a slideshow that rotates. We talked about this a little bit already, but I think different stories to tell in between on webcasts would be cool. But I agree, more robots doing robot things is great. I like more matches and more robots.
I just want to jump in here real quick. I mean, BattleBots is a produced show. They do film it like for 12 hours a day for multiple days in a row. So it's really like the same time length as a first competition. It's just produced over many days.
That's a really good point, Tyler. We're seeing the highlights of the day and not the whole slog.
If you wanted a no fluff competition this year, I would say that Ontario District Championships worked out nicely for that, because we had two fields and we were alternating between them. So it was just like match. And so that was probably less fluff. But I talked to people who were watching it and just kind of felt a little bit overwhelmed. So I don't know, there's got to be a line in there between. But like, I would love to get rid of fluff like the Cotton Eye Joe, and bad lip syncs and stuff like that. So yeah, sure, I like robots, but I also think like I would not want to get rid of like good MC intros that tell you the stories behind the teams that are about to play.
Agreed. And I think those are the things I want to keep, because it's what makes, the community really engaging. Another suggestion, I believe these are from Facebook comments, but top 4 teams could not select any other top 4 teams as alliance partners. I don't think this is any different than saying no picking within the top 8. It's just 4 instead of 8, and it's still dumb.
And guess what? everyone's going to start throwing matches. Like, it already happens because of the Serpentine draft, but it's like team second picks that are kind of throwing matches. Now it's going to be like really good teams once they realize they're not going to seed number one. And if it's like, oh, shoot, if I'm number 2 or 3 or 4, I can't be picked by the Cheesy Poofs.
Better be 5.
Oh, no.
We get this suggestion from Mayhem every year, and I won't do it. It's never happening. Please stop putting it in the forum.
Well, I think part of it is that people don't realize how prevalent match throwing is in FRC.
Yeah.
And like, no one wants to admit it. No one wants to talk about it. But like, it's clearly a thing, and it's
it's wild. No, none of that.
Because what the worst thing is right now is there are teams who are benefiting by throwing matches and, getting onto those top alliances, winning events, advancing to worlds and whatever. So the teams who are really being punished are the ones who are like, yeah, I'm not going to throw a match. I'm just going to be stuck being the 8 alliance captain and just deal with it. And that's infuriating to me. So like, we just need to create a system that incentivizes it as little as possible, because it's the incentive to winning is always going to, people want to win, so they're going to do what they can to win, and we never want it. I don't even want to talk about it. I'm done.
Yeah. Nope. So we have a couple of more questions, but don't forget, guys, you can post Space Koala, one word, in the chat for your entrance to the giveaway. What are you laughing about?
Space Koala.
Space Koala without a space.
I'm picturing a koala in like an astronaut's helmet.
Like a helmet. And
yeah.
Living his best life in space.
Oh my god, that is eucalyptus, but it can't because of the glass. It's all poor koala.
Oh, poor buddy. Now I'm sad. Okay.
We have all fantasies right now.
We have just a couple of more questions. So this one comes from Jargzak. Question, thank you, we know. Was it a good idea for First to announce the 2019 game at Houston? So if you didn't see either championship and you're still watching fun,
hold on. We got to back up. They did not announce the 2019 game. They announced the theme and the game name.
Lunacy 2. Yeah.
It would be very different if they announced the game.
Here's the manual, guys.
Yeah, I don't think that was a good idea. Yeah.
No.
I agree.
So they put out that all 4 of the first programs would have this space theme. So we have on FRC, we have Destination Deep Space, which I personally really appreciate all the photoshops that are Destination Despacito. It just makes me giggle. But I don't know that I love I like that the theme announcement came out. It's cool that they're all the same, which if we're gonna do themes, it's clear they want to do themes and they're gonna lead in hard to it. That's great. Awesome. But I don't like. I think the issue is they announced it at Houston, and then at Detroit we're like, stay tuned for a big surprise. It's gonna be awesome, and then they played the exact same video as if there wasn't that wasn't already out in the world. And it's true that there are people who go to Detroit who didn't watch Houston. That's absolutely true. I don't like the messaging of for a surprise at the event where it wasn't a surprise. That's what I'm not a big fan of. It seemed like they were just pretending that 2 champs didn't exist, and that's the problem I have.
I agree with that, but like I do have to say, like watching the reaction of people in Detroit when it was announced, like the crowd went crazy and like talking to people there. So like I get why they didn't have to make it seem like it was a surprise, but just you want to play up that hype. So
yeah, I think it was a cool hype moment, and everyone's still excited because they get to see it again. They get to think about it and kind of be in that mind frame of going towards the next season. But what I didn't like about it was that it literally was just a copy paste, and it didn't seem like they thought they were 2 events. I like that there's a thought in chat about a name reveal at one and then some sort of add-on, like movies that have 2 trailers at the 2 events. But I think that would not help the people who don't watch both, because we're in a bubble here on this show, people who are really jazzed about the first community, and we seek this information out, and there are a lot of teams who don't, and that's important to remember.
Yeah, I one thing I do wish they had done is I wish that, and the Cats are the bag for this year, because like if they keep doing this, people are going to come to expect this at championship. But like, there's a lot of people, the majority of the first community doesn't watch championship. because they're not there and they're not interested in whatever. And like they're kind of out of the loop on this. And like I know they've been sending email blasts and whatever, but like I would have been cool if there was an email blast beforehand, and it would have just shot their webcast viewing up. Be like, hey, for those teams aren't going to championship, you might want to tune in at like 6:30 p.m. on Saturday afternoon because we're going to be announcing the theme and the game name for next year, and that would have built hype. So like,
yes,
I just know from Vex Worlds where they announce the new game every year at Vex Worlds, and that's because they have a 12-month build season. It's totally different. But the webcast viewership is it jumps after the finals end. It's not that people want to watch the finals; it's that everyone tuning in to find out what the new game is. And so I think FRC and first in general, because they announced the theme for all the programs, kind of missed an opportunity there by not hyping.
Mm-hmm. That announcement at Vex Worlds, and I volunteered at Vex Worlds for the last 2 years, gives me chills. Like, it's so cool. And I think there's a lot to take from that in terms of how you build hype for stuff. And I think there's a really cool model there that gets your whole community involved. And I think you're right. Warning people up front, not just saying, "Ooh, there is a surprise," but saying this is what's going to happen. At the end of finals, you should come watch. I think would shoot their webcast. You're exactly right. Would shoot their webcast views up and connect people to those championship webcasts, which would be nice.
From K-Boo Forever, as opposed to K-Boo occasionally. Opinions on the rumors and proof, I'd love to see the proof, that lower team numbers get screwed over when the FMS chooses the matchups.
Again, proof. I think people really like to complain about matchups, and there have been versions of the matchup software that have not been great, but I don't really know where this is coming from. Rumors are going to be rumors, but unless there is definitive proof, which there appears to be, I
will say this. I have complete faith in the matchmaker algorithm, and that there's nothing messed up that's going on. But like, I can see why people wouldn't have faith, because this year they told us that the plate assignments were going to be random, and
they weren't.
And we all assumed that meant equally distributed, and they weren't. And so like, we all assume that the matchmaker system is a certain way, but maybe we're wrong on things too. So like, I think it's fine, and I haven't seen any numerical analysis that's proven that it's anything but fine. But like, I can see where these conspiracy theories come from, and maybe it's worth first doing a blog post at some point, just explaining how the algorithm works again, and linking to the Idle Loop webpage, and the developers kind of write something that's like, these are criteria we do, this is how we do it, it's blind, whatever. But like, I think more information about how that process works, it would be helpful, because I mean, like years ago, it was a rumor, and like it became a known thing that certain events were running their match schedule repeatedly until they got the match schedule that they kind of wanted. And so like, that's been stopped now. That's not really possible, or like there's like checks and balances in place before, but like that was a rumor, and some people were like, no, that could never happen. And it's like, no, like we saw it happen. So
so one of our final questions here, we have from R Wallace 931 in the chat. So this one's 100% for you. Karthik, please describe the governance model for VRC and explain any aspects of it that you think would work well to improve FRC.
I wish we could get a follow-up question on this. To define governance model, exactly what are you looking for there, Richard? Like, does he mean the structure of the game design committee, or like I don't want to try and answer that question without a little bit more specificity there. Like, that's a good one, but like, and also I don't work there anymore, so what do I know? But yeah, like in terms of things that VRC does well that could improve FRC, I really think VRC Champs gets one thing really right about being a very team-focused event, and everything is done, like there's an overwhelming amount of volunteers there just to help teams plug in and get acquainted, and just a lot of support there, and like kids are taught like that it's we tell teams like it's okay if you're upset at reps, and if you're going to yell for a bit, that's okay too, but like we're going to be as patient with you as possible, but the more rope you give us, the more rope we'll give you, and like just kind of working with each other. So like that sort of stuff is really cool.
I really appreciated that meeting, and because some of the MCs of Expos was sitting in on it because our meeting was next, and it was really cool to hear that as the opening was like, we get it.
Like, what this was, Libby, at the drivers meeting?
Oh, I mean, you're the one who gave it, but sure. It was basically the intro to the drivers meeting was, hey, we're all here to compete, we're all here to have fun, but you're gonna get a lot farther with, kind, positive behavior than you are with a lot of negativity and harshness. And it was an acceptance of, like you said, it's okay to be upset when you lose, but it's not okay to take that out on someone else. And it was really nice to hear a clear cultural statement for teams in such a public setting. And I do want to compliment in that mindset, my team went to Palmetto Regionals this year, and the head ref no, it wasn't Palmetto. It was Mount Olive. Sorry, we did go to Palmetto, but it wasn't at Palmetto. Palmetto head ref was also stellar, but our Mount Olive head ref gets on the microphone and does the same kind of thing. Hey, we're all a team here. I'm here for you. You guys are here for me. We're working together on this. And so I loved just the very, very clear, the Vex Worlds example, cultural statement on it's okay to have negative emotions, but it's not okay to let that influence your behavior in a way that hurts others. So I just thought that was a really cool part of the process of the day, and I really appreciated it, having gotten to sit in on the Vex Worlds one.
All right, and looks like our last question is from our mod in the chat, Caltran. What would be your mayhem rule for FRC?
I mean, I've talked about Golden Snitch Bot. I just think that would be really fun and like wacky and silly. I would also love to see some sort of like nonsense power up that like does something different. But again, you can't really do these big, crazy, wacky things without fundamentally changing the game. And at a root, as an off-season host, our job is to make sure that the 36 teams that come and play in our house have fun. And most of that is the expectation that they're still going to get to play power up. So as much as I love the sort of like silly nonsense, and I love the idea of Golden Snitch Bot, our weighted cube that drives around the field, I don't know that I would actually, we're not going to put it in play, right? It's fun to entertain, but I'm not going to do it.
All right, so I think we're getting ready to that point where we're going to find out who won our contest.
That's right, we are. We're going to find out who wins our Space Koala t-shirt giveaway. Again, this is from Team 3132 Thunder Down Under. They're trying to help a Tasmanian team who lost everything in a flood. So if you can go support them, please do. Go help out another first team that really, really needs it. This is your last chance to type Space Koala, one word, in the chat. Followers get a chance to win. Subscribers get 5 times the luck. So we are going to kind of virtual drum roll. Tyler, why don't we roll it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go for it, Tyler. Let me know who won.
The name you couldn't pronounce before.
The name I couldn't pronounce before because it was straight gibberish. You have won the giveaway. Make sure that you message First Updates Now. You can do a Twitch whisper, you can do an email, or you can do the Facebook page with your information, and Tyler can get that sorted. So you can email address, Tyler, you want?
You just shoot me your mailing address would be great.
Mailing
address.
Let
me know what size T-shirt you wear too, and I don't know what Australian shirt sizes are, so good luck with that.
How do they know they won? We didn't say their name.
It did show up in chat, but it's
okay.
HJBGHNND_COC.
Yes. You won! Congrats!
Yeah.
Swear jar, guys. There is a First Updates Now.
We don't have one for you.
Swear jar. Okay.
I put one in for you.
Thanks, Libby's swear jar. Carly doesn't get a swear jar.
Yeah, fuck that.
Oh man, I don't get to have any fun.
And we have a rated R rating.
Okay, so we are actually going to close it up here on Candidly Speaking. So we just want to say thank you to everyone who's helping make the show possible. If you like what we do here on First Updates Now, all that we ask is you click the follow button. Again, it's right up here. You can invite others in to come watch the show. You share us with your team, with your other first friends. They can be a part of this awesome community. We love you guys so much. If you're able to afford, the price of a cup of coffee, please consider donating. You can give bits through Twitch, little bitties. There's a nice little animation. Or you can subscribe. You can also subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime, because you can connect to Twitch and get Twitch Prime. And funds go directly to creating great content on Fun. So Tyler, we're going to give you the chance to give a little shout out to the folks who supported us this evening on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Libby. So those who have followed the show here, 1, 2, 3, Multi-Supreme, thank you for your Tier 1 sub. Mike Stark, 5 bits. Libby, thank you for your Tier 1 sub. 16 months of support, Libby. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mike Stark, Tier 1 sub. Thank you, buddy. Caltran, hosting. Libby, hosting. Thank you. Word Benjamin, hosting. PJ giving us a few bits there. Alex Fool, Prime subscription. Thank you. Electronica 1, 8 months of support. Thank you. Said 1458 Tier 1 sub. Thank you. Jamie Sin, 6 months of support with your Tier 1 sub. C-Bale 2000 with your Prime sub. Redfish Robotics 9958 with your Prime sub. And Alex Fool as well with some bits. So thank you, everybody, for your support, especially during off season. We really appreciate you showing up to the plate, both watching and supporting our show.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So, Candidly Speaking, we'll be back next month. If you have suggestions for us, you can drop them into our Discord, on the Chief. There's all sorts of ways, but, we're always open to suggestions on what we can talk about. First Updates Now has a great lineup of shows every Tuesday, including Recap, live game shows with trivia, Funanalysis, Let's Draw Robots, and FTC Live. So make sure you tune into all of those. On behalf of myself, Libby, and our producer, Tyler, working behind the scenes, we'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to the moderators in chat, and we'll see you next time on Candidly Speaking. So talk to you then.
Bye, guys.